So this is weird. There are never two conductors in the same place at the same time, but I'm thrilled to say, Enrico, that we finally met the day before yesterday.
Yes.
I was able to come to your Ben Folds concert, which was just fantastic.
Oh, thank you so much.
And I've only heard the most wonderful things about you over the last few years. So it's such a delight not only to meet you in person, but that we'll be working so closely together over the next few years.
I'm incredibly excited.
So nice to meet you. And I understand both of us come from musical families. You had it in your childhood as well, in your family.
It's true, yeah.
Tell me
so
about it.
Both of my parents were musicians. My father is an opera singer, and my mother is a pianist. That's how they met. They met in school. My mom was assigned to be my dad's accompanist.
Aww.
And with time, he made up more and more competitions that he was
I'm
training
sure he
for,
did.
and so they got to spend more time together, and then they, of course,
my parents, both pianists, they met at school as well,
did?
at college, and fell in love there, and then led a life together in music.
That's amazing.
Were they, your parents, keen for you to follow that path then?
I think they didn't mind either way. I mean, my mom had both my sister and I always involved in any kind of musical ensemble we could be. I mean, we had to play an instrument, so we started on piano, and both of us, because my mom was our teacher, got sick of that very quickly and switched to other instruments. But she was supportive of us pursuing it professionally or not, depending on what we wanted to do. What about you? Were your parents?
They were, I learned the instruments and we performed all the time, you know, at home, chamber music and things, but when it came to the profession, I think they knew as music, that's why I ask, as musician parents do, it's a bit like sports parents, they know unless you're really committed to the thing and it's really your calling, don't put your finger on it, because you know, with artistic work, it's so competitive. It's only the very, very kind of peak, if you're lucky enough to get there, that you can really make a wonderful living from it. And so yeah, they were, you know, nervous. But so when did you lead then into conducting? What was the journey?
So my degrees before conducting were in trumpet. That was my main primary instrument. I know, well, that's okay.
We'll forgive you.
Thank you.
Joking. Any trumpeters out there, that's a joke.
That's right. And I, you know, throughout middle school and high school, I played drums and rock bands and other genres of music, so I was exposed to a lot of styles of music. Trumpet is what I studied, and it wasn't until I was in school for trumpet that I realized that wasn't really what I wanted to do with my life. It was, you know, scales in a practice room was not super fulfilling. And so I started to branch out, and I mean, I have always had an interest in conducting. There are pictures of me as a little kid on the fireplace holding a baton and conducting, because I used to watch my dad on stage at the Opera House, and so that was appealing. And so I got into it that way. What about you?
And now, well, for me, I was just, I was a pianist and a cellist, and I was always very obsessed by the music for orchestra, and I guess there were a few different options open to me as a cellist to become an orchestral musician, which I think would have been a very fulfilling life. But I also was very drawn to reading the scores, and fortunately my parents had a lot of them at home. And so there's also, you know, I'd stand in front of the mirror, or I'd just stand in a room conducting Carrie Ann and this and that. And bit by bit, I got the bug more and more. And then I went over to Germany to study, and I said to my father, because I was studying cello, I said, if I want to conduct, what do you think is the most important thing to do? And he said, well, of course, you know, study it, but also start an orchestra. Just start an orchestra, start rehearsing, start working, learn how to work with people in rehearsal. And so I did that. And I get the impression that you are a very entrepreneurial spirit as well as a musician. And I have to say that period of my life where I had to be entrepreneurial as well and build the orchestra, you know, like organize music stands, print music, write arrangements, all of those things, do personnel management.
Right.
All of that adds so much, I think, to the fiber of them being in the profession. Do you find the same thing?
I mean, I think it's one of the things that drew me to the symphonic world more than, say, like the opera world or otherwise, is that it seemed like a creative space where, as a conductor, you can expand and grow the industry and the art form in unexplored territories.
And you touch on a really interesting point there, because even though we established earlier that we're 10 years apart, I know we look the same age.
That's true. I don't know who that's better for.
But that idea of growing the industry, or at least continuing the growth, that's such a beautiful watchword, because I feel that very passionately, that this is in many ways like an ancient art form. It's been around for hundreds and hundreds of years. And yet I think of it as so current. Even the old, you know, this week I'm performing Beethoven, and there'll be people who say, well, you know, Beethoven's 200 years old, what's it got to say? The reason it's endured is because it is coursing with the deepest parts of what's important about humanity. And I think that if we can be a small part of communicating that and sharing that and underscoring to this generation, where we're all so, you know, the world is fast and so so connected and snippets of things, but there's also this great thirst for going deeper. That's what happens in a concert hall as well, whatever the program. And tell me about Pops for you. How did you get drawn into that world?
Well, I think the appealing thing for me about Pops was that it was a combination of all the different genres of music I grew up participating in myself, whether it was electronic music, rock, or oldies, or styles that my parents played on the radio when we were in the car. I had never been to a Pops concert until my first job at the Omaha Symphony as a conductor. So I didn't even know it was a thing. And I kind of fell into it when I got there, and then they were like, oh, we're gonna have you do a music of Journey and these other shows, and it sort of I started to realize, wow, I can actually combine all the things I love.
And you have to be so versatile to do the job that you do. You have to be so good, and then you have to be so versatile, moving from genre to genre, artist to artist, some of whom will have deep experience in working with symphony, others might be doing it for the first time. You have to be also the connective tissue, don't you?
But I saw that you have done some Pops things as well.
Stop it. Well,
actually,
actually,
with some artists that have done
with the orchestra I founded in Germany, that was actually our most important cycle. Was we did a series called 440 Hertz, and I did a lot of arranging for that. And we'd get artists from across Germany. They could be jazz musicians, DJs, pop, poets, whatever. And we'd create programs that had a kind of repertoire arc that included a lot of their stuff, and it was designed to bring their audiences, of course.
Great.
But then we would interpolate classical works. And the thing with classical music, as you well know, it's just so wide the world. There's so much music. There's gorgeous little 2-minute works, or there's 2-hour. And so you can always, if you know the repertoire and you're inventive, create those bridges. And I loved doing that. And I love also, whoever it is, like Diana Ross or those kinds of shows I've done in Gala, and I love them. Because I'm also like you. I mean, I grew up playing jazz piano and then Pops keyboards. I had a cover band, and I'm also kind of holistic in my taste, and I find everything feeds off everything else. I remember when I really got into jazz properly, then I suddenly perceived Bach completely differently, because I saw the harmonic structure. Like as the groove, like the chords written out underneath, way differently to how I had done before. But,
and all of those musicians were playing in different situations when they were living and alive, whether it was popular music, church music, or other settings as well. Okay, so I'm hearing that we need to start a cover band.
I think we should.
That's going to be the new.
I think we should. What do you trumpet then, or drums?
I'll play drums. That seems a little more appropriate.
I'll be on keyboards. We just need to pick up a few more members. We'll ask the orchestra.
Okay, sounds great.
Okay.